William Lee is with us now. He is chief economist at Milken Institute. That barely describes the completeness of his research note. There's any 5 ways to go here or not. But Bill, at the bottom of your note, I've got to go to the chronology for President Xi in China and what it means for our viewers, our listeners, and economics and markets worldwide. And that is a small matter of a 20th Party Congress in China this year. John Thornton and others say this is very important. Tell us why we should focus on the leader of China and his Party Congress.
Well, President Xi is not really assured his desire to be a leader for life, because there's a lot of dissension within China, even though we from the outside don't really see it. And we have to keep in mind that Russia, Ukraine, and China-Taiwan are similar but very dissimilar. Russia, Ukraine has a lot of regional effect on local energy markets and European relations. But China-Taiwan will have huge global impact because Taiwan is the center of the semiconductor production and distribution, and that's at the heart of our global supply chain. So the key for Xi Jinping right now is, how do I tell my domestic audience I've got control? And the one thing that China's been obsessed with since the days of Kissinger and Nixon is Taiwan is China. And now, how do we effect that? How does Xi Jinping make that happen? And that's the real thing that we're going to have to watch for, because while we're distracted by the Olympics, he's doing a nice hat trick with the other hand with Taiwan.
Bill, I think of my book of the summer last year, James Stavridis and Elliot Ackerman, 2034, which was just stunning. Like, folks, you'll see it, I'm sure, in a movie theater here in a few years or streaming on Netflix. And Bill Lee, the tension there is between the Chinese military and the leader, the politics of China. Do we have any understanding of that relationship?
I think if you know Chinese history, the emperor is in Beijing and the emperor is far away. That's the attitude that's always been in China. There are a lot of fiefdoms within China, and the military fiefdom is absolutely supreme. And that's why Xi Jinping made it so clear he is the head of the Red Army. But right now, the desire to regain Taiwan is something that is overwhelmingly strong, especially with the wolf warrior diplomacy that China has implemented. And China has really focused on domestic values and domestic goals for a modern-day socialist country, and they want that to spread to Taiwan at least, and certainly Hong Kong.
So when does a health crisis call Xi Jinping's hand? And I wonder this as he tries to clamp down on Hong Kong, and Carrie Lam, who came out and basically said, we're not doing lockdowns, even as the cases surge. He comes out, Xi Jinping, and says, oh, yes, you are. Do them now. And you're going to treat it as though it's the most important thing that you deal with. And we're risking potential social uproar. What is the likely consequence for Xi Jinping? Can he win this and get what he's looking for in Hong Kong?
Lisa, I think the reality is that Hong Kong is but a shadow of its international past. When I was in Hong Kong, it was the international financial center for China. Now it's a provincial city similar to perhaps Wuhan. And Xi Jinping is treating the COVID policy of Hong Kong the way he treated Wuhan. Stamp it out and make it happen fast. And that is his way of exerting control over the little democratic movements that are going on, not only in Hong Kong, but throughout the world and throughout China, and the pressuring for him to change. He's suddenly telling his domestic audience and the international audience, China's model is China's model.
Bill, this might be a concern from a democratic level, from certain, sort of Western countries, from a governmental level. It doesn't seem to be a concern for investors. And one thing that I'm struck by is that even as the PBOC contemplates easing policy yet again, you're seeing the Chinese yuan strengthen to about the highest going back 4 years to 2018. What sense do you make of this? I mean, do all of the measures that Xi Jinping has put in place actually give China a better chance at dynamism and faster growth of the future?
I think a lot of international investors are clinging on to that vision of, my God, if I could just sell one bottle of Coke to a Chinese consumer, I'm going to make billions. And I think that image is really changing. You guys have a great article on Bloomberg about how American brands are no longer in favor because of the shift in attitude toward the West. Nike and other Adidas is not looked at as favorably as it was before relative to Chinese brands. That's the shift I think global investors aren't realizing, that the Western partnership is not as valuable to China as it was in the past.
Bill, I imagine the C-suite and multinationals get the problem right now. How on earth do they satisfy a progressive base in places like America and satisfy the Chinese nationalism you're talking about in the mainland? Do they have to choose, Bill? That's the question that I've got, because for a long, long time they're sat on the fence. In fact, for some US corporations, they've lent towards China perhaps more than they have the United States and the goals of the administration, the White House. Bill, do they have to start choosing?
It's absolutely clear to me that C-suite policy toward China has always been pocketbook over values and principles. And I think the overlooking of things that are going on in China regarding human rights is something that is evident even more so now than ever before.
Bill Lee, thank you, sir, of the Milken Institute. Lisa, we've talked about that a while, haven't we? For a long, long time. That issue is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. In fact, it is today's big take on the Bloomberg terminal and available on Bloomberg.com. Nationalism in China has dethroned Nike and Adidas.